Well, hello. Should I call you Mr. Green or Anson?
Anson's fine.
All right, Anson. Well, my name's Kimberly. Thank you so much again for agreeing to meet with me today. So, just a little bit of background. I'm a master's student who is working on my thesis, a project thesis, and it's going to be a website that's going to be a resource for Tennessee employers. So, just a little bit of background. I'm getting my master's in TESOL, and for the last 3 years, I've been working in adult education at a local nonprofit. And what I kept seeing is that people would come in, ESL students would come in, and they would have a degree higher than me. And so I'd be sitting there teaching doctorate degree holders how to speak a language that they could no longer work at a factory. And I'm just going, man, there is so much talent just wasted in this room. And so that's where it all started. And so now I'm working on to resolve brain waste in my own way, at least the state of
Excellent.
Tennessee. And so that's what I'm working on is this site to convince employers that this is an equitable decision, this is an economical decision, hiring immigrants. It's also just a good business decision. And so that's what I'm doing. And I would love to showcase what Tyson has been doing to encourage other companies to follow in your footsteps. So if you don't mind,
Now,
oh, yes, sir.
so real quick. So you reached out to me specifically for the skilled immigrant topic?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Oh, great. Yeah, I was gonna say, if not, yes, it's a passion of mine. So yeah,
Well,
I
what
was
is
like,
your work?
boy, yeah, I just had a big discussion about it yesterday with my new boss, and I was like, how odd that's she's going down that level of stuff because it doesn't come up much. So I'm excited to hear you're following that. Yeah, it's a great topic.
So what's your background with ESL?
Uh, I've been in adult education close to 25 years, and taught, GED and ESL part time, like most people do when they start things off. Um, and then I've worked for the state of Texas twice. I was the state director in Texas for 7 years. The first time I worked there, I worked more as a policy liaison for our commissioners to the Texas legislature on ESL issues.
Oh, wow.
It was right after NAFTA, and there were tens of thousands of dislocated garment workers that spoke Spanish, and we were getting sued, and we had to figure out how to build models to upskill low-skilled Spanish speakers
Hmm.
that were in the workforce. They had been laid off or let go because of trade and NAFTA. So kind of so that was just a lot of policy and legislative stuff and some pilots. We would put money out and kind of see what these models would look like. This is back in this is before the integrated education and training model,
Hmm.
before there was a lot of sophistication in adult education related to workforce development, 2000s, early 2000s. Um, so I did such a good job there. I got poached by Alamo Colleges to build a center close to the last Levi's plant in America in San Antonio, Texas, that closed.
Hmm.
And so we built a specialty center for immigrants and refugees on the west
Oh,
side of San
wow.
Antonio,
That's
just
awesome.
specifically just specifically to address uh, immigrants and refugees and workforce development. And it was, yeah, I always say my career kind of follows lawsuits because that was also kind of a settlement. It was kind of a settlement, that the college system would figure out. This was the theme throughout these years. You know, the systems aren't designed to address these workers. They're protected under the Trade Act. Um, basically the Trade Act says, if you become unemployed because your job goes to Vietnam or NAFTA if it goes to Mexico, um, the state and the federal government and anybody that gets that money is kind of obligated to get you reemployed at 85% of your wages in 2 years. So it's designed for like auto workers and stuff, that
Hmm.
spoke English, that had high school diplomas, that got laid off in the 70s.
Hmm.
Um, low skilled Spanish speaking middle class workers that have no education that were making $14 an hour at Levi's aren't easy to reemploy at 85% of $14 in two
Yeah.
years, you know? So it really it was horrible at the time, predicament, but it forced the systems to figure out all kinds of creative education and training models beyond just putting them in ESL classes, because
Hmm.
that's not going to get you anything in 2 years. So that's kind of the where these integrated models, we did bilingual vocational training
Mm.
models, things like that. So we really cut our teeth on that. Then I went to the state. While I was in San Antonio, though, I opened up a welcome back center. Do you know what the welcome back centers are?
I'm not sure. Tell me more. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the welcome back centers sprung up early 2000s, probably. In San Francisco was the first one. And excuse me, I lost my headphone. They they're designed to reach out, serve, and upskill and reemploy internationally trained health workers
Mm, that's awesome.
back to your occupation. So we opened up, I think it was the eighth Welcome Back Center in San Antonio, uh, and that was my start in uh, really working with internationally trained professionals. We'd always
Hmm.
had them in class. You said at the beginning, but this said, let's do something about it, through getting transcripts, evaluated and specialized English classes. We had a great class I was presenting with a group on yesterday, actually, called Introduction to the U.S. Health System, because so many of those healthcare workers come from countries with state-run health systems. They don't know what insurance is, HIPAA, all these things that basically run the lives of medical professionals are totally unknown to internationally trained health workers. So it
Hmm.
becomes a math. Besides getting reemployed, figuring out the systems are really difficult.
Yeah.
So that got me very inspired. From Alamo Colleges, I got hired to be the state director of adult education. The program was transitioning from an education agency to a workforce development agency, much like Tennessee. So I was hired to basically do the transition and be the director. Um, and once there, I took my passion for internationally trained professionals and turned that into a statewide program model for adult education. So standardized, basically, you know, im- standardized it and made it
Hmm.
legit as an activity, and that helped
That's so
us.
exciting. I really like. I'm
Oh
really
man,
hoping that's where Tennessee goes. And that's where I want to go with Tennessee for sure.
oh my God, I've been trying so hard to get other state directors. I still chum with all of them. I talk with a lot of them. Uh, it's like an alien idea to them, and it's like such a missed opportunity. I call this population the workforce most left behind because no public system calls them their customer.
Mm.
The workforce development system can't do anything with them because their English is too low. The adult ed system wants to just put them in ESL class. The colleges won't enroll them because they're too low English.
Hmm.
So it, and by many dimensions, they're prime candidates for work because they're
Oh,
bilingual
for
and
sure.
biculturally savvy. Yes.
And
So
actually, I don't know if you've seen a new study by Batlava. I haven't met this person, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her
at
name
imp,
correctly.
at MPI.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
average immigrant has a higher level education than the average American now, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's just it could solve so many problems on so many
So
levels.
many problems,
Yeah.
so many problems. Yeah, and so at Tyson, so flash forward to 2 years ago when I start working at Tyson. Of course, I'm bringing this model to Tyson too because I just, I'm not going to stop this mission of. This just makes too much of a good idea. Uh,
That's true.
we have about 10% of our workers, we estimate, have college degrees. 10% of our international workers.
Okay.
So we have a very. How much do you know about Tyson adult education, Tyson Foods at
I've
all?
I've been well, Tyson Foods, not as much, but I've been paying attention for the past 3 years about your different programs. And actually, I'm from Albertville, Alabama, which
Oh,
is, well,
yeah,
yeah, where one of your
perfect.
pilot programs were for,
Yes,
which makes sense for that city for sure. And then just different things on COABE. I've watched a couple of webinars and different
yeah,
things like that. And so I'm really impressed with how, and for me, the big thing with Tyson is that it's during the paid workday. Because that's the number one problem I'm seeing as an educator is that people come to my class and they're exhausted. And it's really hard to learn anything, much less a language, when you're exhausted. And also, it's not something else I'm seeing is that so I work for a local nonprofit named called HopeWorks. Our program's grown exponentially in the last 3 years, and currently we have 300 people on our wait list
well,
just because we're trying to meet the demands of our community. And what I'm seeing is that we don't have the resources. Like we would need 10 more ESL teachers. We don't have the
yeah,
resources to meet this demand. In addition, because it's so diverse as far as needs, we teach general English classes, which makes sense for a nonprofit. It's a good decision. But it's
yeah.
not exactly what everyone needs to be able to reclaim their previous occupational level. And so I'm really pushing for, or I'm hoping that employers will see this and be able to develop their in-house training programs to upskill their own workers for what they need at their company in their positions. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's where I'm going.
That's good. Yeah. And I talk to a lot of employers. I can tell you there's not much going on within employers that I have found. I have
Mm-hmm.
a small group of like-minded employers that we kind of chat around with. We have a work group working on interpreting issues because we have lots of interpreters in our plants, and
Mm-hmm.
just different things like that. But um, I think it's such. I think your mission is great because it's such a Tyson's not unique as a business. I mean, like in terms of our workforce, and so other businesses have these same pressures. They
Mm-hmm.
just haven't taken the step to do this, and the ones that have are, they'll doing ESL classes and stuff like that. But they what they lack almost exclusively is somebody with deep knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
They have HR people, but they don't have adult educators, and that's the secret sauce is you've got to know somebody with a background like me and the people on my team.
Mm-hmm.
We have credibility with people like you. We can go and I could go teach passive voice right now in an ESL class if you wanted me to, or I could go write WIOA legislation if you needed
It's a
me
great
to.
skill set.
You, yeah, I try to be vertically integrated. I could
Mm-hmm.
do all pieces of the system. Let me show you some slides on Tyson's, just so you
Okay.
kind of have a picture of the workforce a little bit. You might find this interesting. Let's see, is that the right screen? Yes. Yeah, so a little bit about you. We make more than chicken. Everybody thinks about chicken because that's what's in the supermarket, but we actually make more beef products and
Mm-hmm.
uh, than chicken. And we have a very, very diverse workforce. It is not uncommon to find 25 or 30 languages in a plant in the middle of Kansas and Iowa and um, Michigan and Nebraska and Texas. Albertville's very diverse, but that's again, I don't think uncommon from similar businesses. That's the labor
Mm-hmm.
market, That's the labor market. So a little bit more about the language. It's kind of a bifurcated, population, just like adult ed is. We have
Mm-hmm.
a large percentage with very low skills. About 12% have never been to school. So they come from largely, I mean, I'm generalizing a little bit here, but often because of war. They come, we have a lot of Burmese from Myanmar and Karenni, and they've basically had a lifetime of war, so they're not going to school. Same with our, some of our African countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, they have real fundamental issues. Most have never used a computer, although most have smartphones. We're doing a ton of work in digital literacy right now, so we know a lot about their digital usage. And then we've got this bifurcation of the higher skilled.
Hmm.
Um, and that's gotten us very excited. Um, and then I'm going to flash forward. I mean, I could show you slides all day long, but I want to flash forward to our internationally trained stuff here. Um, this is just what I was doing yesterday with my boss. Um, 10% have college degrees, average. These are the people that we've talked to. So who knows? I
Hmm.
mean, there's tens of thousands of people. But it's really about moving people off the line and getting them into other parts of our organization within Tyson. So it's not about them leaving Tyson; it's about growing them within
Oh yeah.
Tyson. Um, and this is where I think businesses could really, you know, build some internal talent. Hiring from within makes a lot of sense, as you know. Let me. I had some other slides. Where did they go? No, they're not in this deck. Yeah, I had some other slides. Well, I can just tell you. It's kind of weird. Where'd that go? Um, the thing here it is. The thing that's interesting is, if you look at a Tyson, but this is not uncommon for many manufacturer. We can employ just about any type of worker
Hmm.
uh, in a professional job because we're kind of like small cities, if you think about it. Yeah, I don't know where that slide deck went. Um, Meaning we've got large clinics because they're dangerous places. These are big advanced manufacturing facilities with lots of moving things and forklifts and
Hmm.
robots and stuff. Uh, if you go to like Finney, Kansas, there's 17 RNs that work there.
Wow.
Uh, so it's a massive clinic, and so it's also very diverse. So having a bilingual, Laotian
Yeah.
speaking nurse makes a whole lot of sense if somebody gets hurt. Same with human resources. Uh, uh, Big human resources, diverse populations, wouldn't it be nice to be able to talk to them in their native language to mitigate needs and to address challenges. So we could put lawyers that we find lots of lawyers in our plants. Business professionals and all white collar folks would be great for the office. Trained teachers, we find a lot of teachers. They could be great trainers. They're bilingual. They know how to communicate. They know how to do a presentation. And then, of course, mechanics and engineers are about 1 in 9 people in a Tyson plant is working on machines,
Mm.
actually. So we can employ, and we have lots of very advanced machines, a lot of robots and stuff. So we can employ those folks. So like right now we have a we have a musician we found, a BA degreed musician in Omaha. Not sure what we can do with him. We're we're talking about it, but occasionally
Some
we do run
promotional
across.
content.
Yeah, yeah. He could do start a mariachi in the plant or something. I don't know, but yeah, it's yeah. So we looked at it that way. I can tell you, talking to the HR staff, they
Hmm.
love the idea, and they
Okay.
almost always know people because they just talk to people and they say, hey, oh yeah, oh I know this guy. He's from Kenya. He's a master mechanic, and he's over there making tortilla chips or something in one of our plants. We've had a lawyer from the Dominican Republic Supreme Court apply to the corporate office. She's at a plant in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Um, she needs some more English, so we're helping her with English. We did get somebody placed in. This individual was a uh, architect, and he went and he was also in Northwest Arkansas, working in our build. The people that build plants and remodel plants and stuff. So, um, but that's not unique to Tyson. I mean, it's unique we're doing it, but every business
Mhm.
could be leveraging that kind of expertise.
So when you upskill these individuals, are you doing? I know you're in a partnership with Guild. I don't know if that's. I know that's more of a newer development. Are you making like individualized online training programs for people who are being upskilled into the different positions that are relevant to their background, or do you have more general classes for them?
Um, Yeah, I would say it's actually more general. The because our numbers are still uh, pretty small. We've been doing this probably in earnest for about 8 months, and figuring the model out. We have a partnership. Are you familiar with the Skilled Immigrant Integration Program at
I'm
World
not.
Education Services?
Tell me more. Tell me
Oh,
more.
yes, you need to know all about that. That's going to be a secret weapon for you. So that's kind of the club that works on internationally trained professionals in the United States. It's facilitated by World Education Services in New York. I'm a technical advisor for them. And what they do is every year, I'm going to pull up their website so you can see who we are talking about. And I can put you in direct contact with these people because
Oh,
we're
that
good
would be
friends.
awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the company or nonprofit that does most credential evaluation in the US.
I'm familiar with Wes. We've used them for some
Yep.
transcript
Yep.
translations.
Exactly. So they take the profits they make, basically the balances that they make, and since they're a nonprofit, they invest it in other programs. And so one of them is this thing called the Skilled Immigrant Integration Program, or you'll hear people call it SIP.
Hmm.
And every year they do a kind of a release call for proposals, and you can apply to be a SIP program. And what that gets you, I applied in 19 and for the whole state of Texas, and so we did a statewide program. Um, but once you get in there, they basically give you access to all kinds of technical experts on different topics, transcript evaluation, developing a case management model, helping build career paths across, how do nurses from other countries' job skills align to the nursing requirements in your particular state. Um, and so this year, I'm managing the cohort that's working on the employer engagement. So it's the green programs here: Anchorage,
Hmm.
Colorado, Lincoln, Nebraska, and South Bend, Indiana. They want to know how to do what you're talking about, which is basically outreach to employers. Um, there's another one I'm kind of working on the side that's similar up in Maine, actually, that's not on this map. Um, so yeah, so this is a great. They've been doing this for since 2018. There is probably 70. Well, I guess I say 40 communities across the
Okay.
nation. Over that period of time, we have conference calls. We have one this week, and it's really about information sharing. And I have met all my contacts almost come from this group.
Hmm.
So flashback to Tyson. When we took this on, what I ended up doing was contracting with a program in Lincoln, Nebraska, to do our services for us. So when we find in Albertville, for example, internationally trained professionals, we connect them to Lincoln, and they do two streams of work for us. They um, kind of case manage them. They do a big, assessment of their background. Do they have their transcripts from outside the U.S.? Do they want to go back into healthcare? A lot of times they don't want to go back into their previous occupation.
Hmm.
How long have they been out? If you've been out of if you're a doctor and you've been out of your profession for 10 years and you're
Everything's
45, you're not
changed.
you're
Yeah.
not going to be a doctor. And there's not enough time in your career
Yeah.
to do it to start over. And they know that. Typically, these folks have tried stuff before on their own. That was the thing I loved about the Welcome Back Center in San Antonio is every day you heard like, I've been trying to do this for 7 years and now I found you. like
That's so
they've been
great.
on the they've been on these journeys.
Hmm.
And the other thing is they know others on the journey because they are from the same community sometimes, and so
So it
they will
spreads.
bring all of a sudden they bring their we had one time I remember we had like 5 Iraqis come in, and these were all doctors, and it was like they had word had gotten out. They drove all the way from Houston to San
Oh my
Antonio
goodness.
because, yeah, yeah,
This was
and
it. Yeah.
they just showed up, and I remember, I mean, we were like, "Are we? What do we do? They're from Houston." And we're like, "We're gonna serve them. What do I mean? Why not? I mean, like, we got to figure out what we can do for them." Um, but so yeah, when we find them, we refer them. They do that, and then we have this is the grander experiment because these individuals really need a different kind of ESL class.
Oh yeah.
You know this, having
Hmm.
taught. And but we don't have. I mean, there's not the numbers or the. It's too hard for us to think of building specialized ESL classes when we find three
That's
here and nine.
yeah. It's a big barrier for sure.
Yep, yep. So we have we have two online classes that are using I don't know if you know the software program Engine.
I am. I
It's
know. Hmm.
uh, we have a custom contract with Engine.
Okay.
So uh, what we've done, and we've been doing this probably this part of it probably 3 months. We have a great teacher, but she has figured out a time when they can all meet once a week so they can build community and
Mm-hmm.
talk. Then most of it's self-directed
Mm-hmm.
because there's different. They're in different time zones. One of them's in Austria at one of our plants. So, he gets on, late at night, morning over here to talk with everybody. So, but it seems to be working. The numbers are, I mean, I think there's only like 9 people in these classes, but, this was like, will anybody do this? Like and the constraints have been, as you can expect, getting most of these workers actually are very low English skilled. Um, Surprising, like they've been here for a long time. The story is always the same. I showed up in America. I was a refugee or whatever. I found a job at Tyson. I've been here 7 years, and I've just never thought about my career again. You know, I've been dealing with life and trying to figure out America.
Which is very understandable.
Yes, and
Yeah, that's what
working
anyone
and
would be
all.
doing. Yeah.
So they're kind of like, oh, like when I mean I've interviewed many of them, and when in our interview form, basically we go into plants and we just go through the cafeteria and talk to people. Um, and we have a real structured process to do that. And if they say they've had some college or more, it puts them into a different set of questions, and we drill
Hmm.
in, and they're always so excited to tell you because they're so proud, and they have maybe not told anybody in years. It's like because no one's asking, and they think that they kind of mentally think that part of their life's over.
Hmm.
So that's very encouraging. But
What's
yeah,
so what's one of your favorite success stories when you're going into the cafeteria and interviewing people? Like what's one of your favorite stories that you love to share?
yeah, it's a good question. I mean, well, this story I love because it's the one that we've been noodling the most. But I brought it up with my boss yesterday. Actually, I have a new boss, and we got transferred into human resources, so we have more access to different types of experts. And I brought her this question immediately because it comes up. So this we have a nurse from I think she's from Monterrey, Mexico. She's been out of nursing for 7 years. Her name's Nancy. Um, and she wants to go back in. She wants to work in the clinic, and the plant wants to hire her in the clinic. But of course, to enter a clinic, you need some U.S. certification. So she's a long way from the NCLEX because her English is pretty low. I think she's like a level 2 or 3. NRS level. And so we've got her in the English class with the people in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we are signing her. We signed her up for a medical assisting course to get her some sort of. She needed a U.S. certification just to do anything in the clinic. Um, by the way, the nurses in the clinics, the head nurses, are very excited about this too. And in some places, they already hire. They've not. they've not refined it down to finding other health workers, but they hire skilled immigrants to do intake in the clinic.
Mm.
So they'll be like a business guy or some an engineer or somebody that's because they're just more technically savvy and they can use PCs and stuff and they're bilingual. Anyway, so Nancy, we started digging in and they're going to hire her. She's going to be in the clinic and all this, and then we ran into this issue. Uh, which I wouldn't think is unique from companies either. She works on the production line and can make lots of overtime. And so she actually in the clinic can't get overtime because they don't have overtime. So
Hmm.
she actually would have to take a pay drop to go back
To
into
come
nursing.
back. Oh my goodness.
So those are the situations where I mean we wouldn't know that until we get to this point, and then we can figure out a way to rectify that.
Hmm.
And that happens. That actually happens in business more often than you think, just because salaried workers don't get overtime, and people that work, Tyson pays very well for production level work. So if you can do, and if your personal life allows you to do a lot of overtime, you can get as much as you want sometimes. And once you start banking on that overtime, it's hard to cut it loose, as anybody knows. So that happens, the jump to salary is not an unknown predicament, and that's why sometimes you see people that are in hourly jobs their whole lives. It's not because they don't want to progress; it's because they can't make more money if they progress, which is just yeah, it's a peculiarity of just the pay structure, but. We talked about it yesterday, actually. So we've got to do something about it, though, because it's a ridiculous constraint.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I love that story just because it gave us a problem to solve. That's a big problem, a really big problem to solve. Yeah.
And speaking of problems to solve, one of my first questions I wanted to ask is when Upward Academy started, what needs were you trying to meet or what problems were you trying to solve?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it's very unique, I think. The program started, and I was involved early on when I was state director because we have 10 Tyson plants in Texas. And so we were one of the first states they started this in. I was just on the other side, on the public side, managing the partnership for the state. Um, the what is unique is that it came out of what they call in business corporate social responsibility, which is kind of the division that does all the forward facing positive things for the company, gives away foundation grants to, organizations and stuff like that. And we had a very, very advanced CSR group opening up childcare centers and doing, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Um, and so the ESL work, largely ESL, came out of corporate social responsibility to basically help stabilize and matriculate immigrants not only to Tyson but into America. But it did not have a production outcome. We
Hmm.
weren't trying to make them better workers or faster workers or communicate better on the job. Those were not objectives. The objectives were very holistic and very much aligned to the
Hmm.
objectives your program probably has. And because it's a partnership model with public institutions, we essentially let the school bring their curriculum to the table. We don't like prescribe the curriculum. And that makes it easy for the school. They're like, oh, yeah, my teacher's used to teaching this content. And we know it benefits the students. English is English. And, whether, we're not trying to get an outcome out of it in terms of production.
Hmm.
Um, when I got hired, my job was to kind of add more of a pathway element into it so we could promote from the plants. And so our upward pathways program that you might have seen stuff on, that is more about identifying talent or people that want to grow into different occupations and being much more strategic on a workforce side. So it goes from the kind of life skills area to something very career directed.
Mm.
So yeah, the origin. So, but I think that origin story makes it unique in that people always ask that, like, are you, having less accidents in the plants? I'm like, I don't know. Like, that was never that wasn't an objective. And,
Hmm.
we do all our training. I mean, we do all our safety training and stuff in other languages anyway. So, you're not, yeah, you couldn't
Well,
draw a line between English and safety because it's being taught in Karenni.
yeah. So that's interesting. Then some of my questions might not be as valid because my other questions were how have you seen any changes in your yearly profits since starting this program or in employee retention?
Retention, yes.
Okay.
So we did a study with University of Arkansas and on retention. Let me see if I can find that slide for you. Where did I just recently show that picture? See if it's in this slide deck so I can get the numbers correct. Do, 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 do. Here we go. Perfect. Unbelievable. Um, I've been doing so many presentations lately. I don't know what my first 5 slides are ever going to be when I go into my recently viewed. So here is the outcomes of that: 123% ROI on retention measures. And there may be another slide here. Let's see. No. Yeah. So
Hmm.
essentially, yeah, and there's somebody else in our group that can talk more eloquently about this. I didn't do the study. But yeah, we just took a control of, I think, like 1,100 workers and measured them, against people that were in classes to see, like, if there's higher retention, and there definitely is. And so that's a big deal because replacing a worker costs thousands of dollars,
Hmm.
and so this was good enough. I mean, that those numbers basically helped the program establish itself. This is way back too. This is like 2018, I think. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's the main number we have on that dimension, which was really sufficient, a sufficient outcome, considering we weren't doing anything strategic to get to that. We were just doing ESL classes and a little bit of citizenship and stuff. Now we're actually being a lot more strategic in the different things we offer. We have a very large digital literacy program right now that's just expanding like mushrooms. Every morning I wake up and there's more. And then internationally trained professionals work is taking off. The big piece of work that is my passion project right now is in robotic automation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we're putting.
Hmm.
Okay, I can't stop showing you slides, so I'm going to show you another one. Because I can't stop talking about this work. So yeah, we're putting in robots in our plants, like everybody is and has been
Hmm.
for years. But what? I'm not going to be an expert in robotics, but I'm going to tell you what I think is going on. The technology has gotten better, safer, and cheaper,
Always good a
and
good thing.
easier to use. So companies can buy a robot like this for under $200,000, and it can be run by someone that has no English skills, like Manuela here, who I'm going to tell you about. So this is what they call a palletizer. Very common in plants. It just picks up boxes all day long. And it takes a job, which I'll show you in a little bit, that is very, very laborious, and turns it into one that's safer and has a lot more uh, ability to keep somebody on the job, because nobody wants to heft 27-pound boxes of tortillas like these every day. Here's a video. So just watch the difference in the robot doing the job and Bridget over there on the left, who I interviewed a few weeks ago in Fayetteville. I mean, in Berryville, Arkansas. Oh, let me turn the sound. You can't hear the sound, can you? Very
Uh,
loud.
no, I cannot.
So you can see it just as a little. Look at her. That's a 40-pound box of chicken fingers.
Oh my goodness.
That's her job. Um,
She's a
and
strong woman.
yeah, and sometimes it's this is not a lot of product coming off. Sometimes it's like a box every 12 seconds. So there's several people down there. But yeah, so it makes a lot of sense to do this
Mm-hmm.
because there's high turnover in these jobs. These are very low dignity, very difficult jobs, and if there's any outcome, it's typically an injury.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean
A lot of stress on the body.
a lot of stress on the body, yes, and not very fulfilling. And so now this is just a tester robot where they're going to be putting a lot more of them in, so that most likely she'd be operating maybe four robots because they're very
Mm-hmm.
they don't they don't break often. Well, here's what happens. So here's what's happening here. So this is a different robot. This one doesn't have a cage around it, but it's very safe. If you just touch it, it stops. It's very sensitive.
Mm.
Um, but this individual here, I interviewed her Monday. She doesn't speak English. She's worked at Tyson since 1979, so she's hyper tenured. And she drives a she her real job is driving a forklift, a pallet jack. Um, she she learned Spanish from her kids and does she went to ESL back in 1999, but never got very far. Um, and when I asked her, I said, "Do you have a computer at home?" She said, "No, this is my first computer." I love that statement from her. Anyway, they're trying to troubleshoot the problem here because the robot has stopped. But what if you look at that box here, it's opening.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is that these are boxes of tortillas, and they typically will ship them. They're still warm in plastic
Mm-hmm.
bags. This this load of tortillas had cooled, so the box created air in it. There was the bags unpuffed, and the robot stopped because it sensed it was going to drop the box because there's this. It's feeling the space in there
Mm-hmm.
when separate. It just picks up the box with suction cups. So it's real safe. So they're trying to figure out by reading the controls what's going on. We've realized the English and Spanish are horrible because they're probably written by a automated translator because the company is from France and I'm sure the French screens are beautiful. Yeah, we looked at she's reading the Spanish and the Spanish doesn't make any sense either. Um, so right now I've got people from University of Nebraska and some other people helping me. We're doing a job analysis to figure out like what is the training piece that needs to happen here? What are some other things to do? Like we need to tell the company let's retranslate this stuff because it's probably just a finite uh, number of words that's in the computer. Anyway, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
we got this program model at basically how we're gonna like build this program design around it and probably turn it into an IET. Is what
Mm.
I think it's
That'll be good. Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan of IETs. My program has a few and they've been very successful.
good. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of these things. Yes. So
So I
yeah,
know,
so I mean, yeah, go ahead.
oh, so I know, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We have about 13 minutes left.
Okay.
So I guess at this point, one of my big questions is, do you have a model or a blueprint of best practices that's available to the public?
I don't know if I have something like that. I've got some stuff that JFF published. Um, I can send you a link to that. Just kind of a story. it's not too sophisticated, but no, we don't. I mean, we as a company, I found they don't brag a lot. So they don't. There's, unless I do it on social media, like it doesn't get out. They just it's not in their
Pros and
culture to
cons.
like. Yeah, it's funny. It's not in their culture. So like I'm involved in some big research grants now that we will be getting a lot of information out in the public space through research, which is great. But yeah, so yeah, I don't have anything really crispy or beautiful to tell the story on.
No worries.
Um,
Yeah, just asking.
no, no, yeah,
What?
yeah, yeah. If you're hearing hesitancy, it's because I'm lamenting that. But
Well, you're not alone because when I've done my research and just through my personal experience, one of the biggest pieces missing are best practices for
yeah,
ESL IETs. So I'm just
yep.
asking because I don't have it either. So don't worry. And then I guess my other question would be because I'm making this for companies trying to convince them that this is an excellent business decision. What advice would you give to other businesses who are considering launching their own ESL program on site?
Um, I think I think the first thing is to think of it as a digital ESL class, digital and ESL. I am become convinced in the last 6 months that we should not be trying to teach ESL without teaching digital at the same time. And we have we that's what our digital program. We have a program called DART, Digital Advancement and Resiliency at Tyson. It's integrated ESL starting from the alphabet all the
Wow.
way to logging in 300. If you ever want to know how long does it take to teach a non-English speaker, non-Roman alphabet reader how to log into a computer
I've
with
done that.
security, yes, the
How
curriculum's
long?
the curriculum's 390 pages with 40 YouTube
Okay.
videos. Yeah. It's my last pet project that has now got 16 pilots and it's going really well. But I think that piece is instrumental just because soon as students can use technology, um, they can augment their ESL at the same time, of course, in so many different apps and great things to use out there. But it also is a different way to engage them because learning English is hard. It's not very fun sometimes, but logging into a computer or using an app can be much more exciting. And so it's a back door of excitement to get them involved. So that would be my first advice. My second advice would hire someone that knows what they're doing on the in the in the space. And all the companies that I'm working with, Rhino Foods up in Vermont, they make the chocolate chips for Ben and Jerry's. Cambria countertops in Minnesota. They make these beautiful countertops. Merrick Brothers Construction in Houston and four other states. The Gap distribution centers. Gap. I always
Mhm.
call it the Gap. It's not the Gap. It's called Gap. Um, it's because their ads fall into the Gap. And yeah, they are doing ESL, and they all have expert people.
Hmm.
Um, uh, then the other one is Driscoll's, the folks that do all the berries that you find at the grocery store, blueberries and blackberries and stuff out of California, which they're pretty advanced actually. They have huge farms out in California and Mexico, and they got a good sophisticated model for ESL. Um, but they hire people that know what they're doing. So that's the typical gap. Because if not, it's just too much for a HR generalist to understand how to build for.
Hmm.
You've got to have some expert in there. Um, that would be my main advice. And then the other, you had mentioned earlier. I don't know if you want to talk about like paying people on the job,
Yes,
but
I would
there's
like to talk about that.
yeah, it's an interesting thing because my response is not going to be what you think.
Hmm.
Um, but I'll tell you why. So we have programs in 17 states, so we have every kind of model of compensation you can imagine for class.
Mhm.
Most of them, well, so we have models where they pay people to be in class. We have models where they pay them uh, not to get off the line, but they pay them after class. So they're still paying them, but they have to do their shift because production is king. They gotta make their production. We have models where they don't pay them. We have models where they do incentives. And it's the models where they don't pay them and do incentives that are the most successful.
Why do you think that is?
I can tell you. I can tell you first off why the other models don't work well. If you pay workers, um, it is first hard for HR to figure that out. So you're giving HR a problem, and that's never a good thing to create enthusiasm for your program. But it creates a problem for HR in the company also because not everybody gets in the class. So there's an equity piece that says, okay, we have room for 15 and we have 1,000
Mm.
people that want this class. Uh, that's not something an HR manager wants to have to deal with. So in one of our plants, the solution, which is not a good solution, and it's like splitting the baby, they put people in the ESL class, but only for 8 weeks, so they can put a new group in. So you have 8 weeks of English, and then that's all you get. And so I'm
Mm.
like, well, you're not going to learn much in 8 weeks. It's like, so that's not a good model. So it's the equity piece of who gets in.
Mm.
The other thing that is harder to control is some people get in because they want to get out of work. Um, it creates a lot of resentment for the workers because it's like now I'm doing your job. You get to
Mm.
go to ESL class. It presents resentment for the English speaking workers. Well, why do they have a class and they can get off the line, but I don't?
It's a
So you
valid
got to start a
point.
G, you got to start a GED class. So those just tend to be rife with little problems that on the surface you're like paying to go to school. That's a great idea. Man, it's full of
Mm.
problems. Full of problems. The incentive works the best because then you say finish 8 weeks with, 85% attendance, and we'll give you a 20-pound box of chicken and a $20 gift card or something. And we have all kinds of different models like that. And that gives them a goal. Get an MSG, you know,
Mhm.
uh, earn your citizenship. And so that keeps them coming rather than uh, just paying them to sit, seat time. Um, those seem to be the most effective ones. And when I work with state offices, like I just worked with a state that's designing a model, they're using and they want companies to provide incentives
Mm.
and not necessarily have to pay them because I think they have seen that as a winning model elsewhere. Plus, it means people are showing up on their own time, which means they really want it. You
More
know,
buy-in, more student
there's more
buy-in is
there's more
key.
there's more buy-in and stuff, but it is the hardest piece for our teachers to get them acclimated to is yeah, these workers are going to be exhausted sometimes. These are hard jobs. You saw Brittany lifting those boxes. That's there's a lot harder jobs than that. Just repetitive. I mean, our plants are very fast moving typically. Um, and so the teachers, we always, the good ones, the effective ones know that and they really pace the class accordingly
Mm.
and try to get people out of the environment. It's so funny too. One of the big debates too is where do you have the class? Uh, and students are mixed on that. Some like it in the plant because it's convenient. Some want to get out of the plant because they're sick of
Mm.
being in there. so, my team spends most of its time. I mean, we always joke, but I say, we spend most of our time with logistics, making we, like, we think we're educators. We're not. We're logisticians. We're trying to make the schedule work for the students so that they can still make their carpool, and the
Hmm.
teacher can show up, and you're dealing with five different things that are trying to make this little hour twice a week or three times a week work. Um, and that's the other piece of advice I would give the business is spend as much time on the class, on the planning and timing and recruiting of the class as you do on the actual class itself, because it's a delicate balance of getting it to work and getting it in the right environment and all those kind of things, for sure.
This is a great list. This is liquid gold for companies. And so I'm very excited to share this.
I love that. All righty.
All
Well,
right.
thank
Well,
you. Take it easy.
Anson, thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
Sure.